When we were working on MASH, Wayne Rogers and I used to drive him to the set out in Malibu when we would do the exteriors in the mountains, and he didn't like to drive, so I drove him. And I would tell him my dreams, and and he would interpret my dreams for me, and we had like an hour drive out there, you know. So this dream was about how the director, we were doing a scene, he and I were acting in a scene in this dream, and the director said, just get up on the armoire there and say your line from on top of the armoire. So I did it, and I didn't like it. I felt uncomfortable. And Wayne said, you know what this is? We're being asked to accommodate the camera all the time by the director, and it's getting in the way of our acting. He says, we must never do an armoire. And from then on, every time somebody'd say, oh, just hold that a little higher so we can see it in the tight shot, you know, Wayne would say, armoire, or I'd say, armoire coming here, you know, because the joke is, among actors who do film, that it's in the old westerns, in the wide shot. I don't know how wide this shot is if you're down. In the wide shot, they'd hold the gun here. In the medium shot, when the camera's tighter, they'd hold the gun here, and in the close-up, they'd hold the gun up here, and then they cut all that together, and you're not supposed to notice. Well, maybe the audience doesn't notice, but the actor sure notices the difference between this and this, and it's annoying. And you play a scene, you relate to a person a certain way if you're like this, and then it's a whole other thing if you're like this, and that's an analogy for all the rest of acting. So there are many demands made on you that are armoires in film, much more so than the stage. I mean, on the stage, there are a couple of basic things like, unless you really want to, unless there's a reason for it, don't turn your back on the audience. Speak up. Okay, a few things like that, so which are annoying enough. You don't want to always speak up that much. But in film, it's very mechanical. It's very peculiar. Film is a medium, I include television in this, is a medium where spontaneity counts more than anything, because you can read their thoughts. Camera's right up in your face. You can't really read their thoughts on the stage because you're too far away. Even though spontaneity is that important, there are so many mechanical considerations that are thrown in your way, it's almost impossible to be spontaneous. In fact, you have to know, because a movie and a television show are shot usually, except television shows that are shot with 3 cameras, but then they do pickups, so it's the same thing. Because it's shot out of sequence, you have to intellectually know what your character is going to be like on page 100 compared to what the character is like on page 3. And you have to be able to jump from that state that the character's in on page 3 to page 100, back again to page 70, then to page 112. And you have to intellectualize this because you don't get a chance to do it all in one go. You usually don't rehearse it. And if you rehearse it, you just rehearse a couple of scenes. As a result, the spontaneity that ought to grow out of an organic integration of all the elements of the story, the play, the characterization, the growth of the character, all of that should happen organically, has to happen intellectually, by choice, by decision. And yet, if you're not spontaneous, it shows. So there's this strange paradox in film where you have the very thing that's valued the most, the form itself works against it, because you do it out of sequence, you come in on the fly, you just do a part of a scene. Sometimes you just do one line out of the scene, and it has to fit exactly with everything that went before and what goes after. It's very peculiar. There are a lot of barriers to good work in film. A good director actually won't require you to hold the gun up there, and a good actor will say to a director who does, well, let's think about that. Maybe that's not such a good idea, you know. But so you might be asked to do. You will always be asked to do mechanical things that get in the way of spontaneity, or get in the way of discovering what it is rather than putting it there deliberately. I find discovery more interesting. I don't like to see performances that don't look like they're being discovered, but that look like it was all worked out the night before and I'm giving you a Xerox of it today. But you have to learn how to work around those things. It's just one of the tasks you have. You do a radio show by talking into the microphone. There's no way to do a radio show without a microphone. Unfortunately, that has led to some bad radio acting. The stereotype of radio actors is people who are consciously manipulating their voices to create some effect. You know, I used to love listening to the radio and hearing them do this. It used to make me chuckle. Like, for instance, the guy would say, "I'll just lift this up and put it on the table," you know. Well, real people don't talk that way. And if you made a recording of somebody lifting something up and putting it on the table, there might be grunts and groans, but they'd come in a whole other way than that. And the good radio actors would find a way to rediscover what it really sounds like to lift it up and put it on the table. And the others who would go from one, you know, a lot of radio actors would do a radio show at 9 o'clock, and then they'd run across town to another show at 11 o'clock, then they'd do one at 4 o'clock. You know, they were working all the time, and they just did it the easy way, the stereotypical way, the cartoon way.